Attention listeners, this podcast is rated R for mature content and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, this is the Lit Talkers podcast. Welcome to episode 4. I'm Jennifer.
I'm Cassie.
I'm Holly.
I'm Tarah.
And today we are going to discuss A Court of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kenney. So this is a book that we read together. Yep. And it was a book that we all have very mixed feelings about. So this is probably going to be a really good discussion. So yes. Let's start with what we rated the book.
I'm going to have to
if
go
you
look.
guys,
I think I gave it
a 5,
stars.
But we can go into why I gave it a 5 later on.
I don't know if I actually rated it. A 4. A 4.
3.
A 4.
I gave it a 3.
I think
I'll get into why.
Gave it a 2 or a 3. Let me hold, please.
I feel like you gave it a 2.
You gave it a 2.
Did I? Yeah, I gave it a 2.
Yep.
Gave it a 2.
I looked last night. It was the lowest one.
I think maybe I gave it a 3 at first and then maybe went back and gave it a 2. But yeah, I didn't like it. Either way.
Okay, that's fair.
So we were given this book by our book club. So that's what spurred us all to pick this book up and read it. It was one of our recommendations.
And
I don't know what you guys for, but I actually chose it. I knew nothing about it previously. And I was just like, a Nutcracker retelling? Let's go. That's my favorite thing.
It was my favorite Barbie movie growing up was the Nutcracker.
Yes! I love Barbie and the Nutcracker.
So I actually picked it as well. I knew nothing about it. I went into it very blindly. I knew it was a Nutcracker retelling and that it was a semi-dark romantic-y retelling. But that was it. That was all that I
saw
into
Nutcracker retelling and went, I don't need to read more. That's the one I want.
That's exactly how I thought because I was a dancer growing up. And so I can't tell you how many times I've danced in the Nutcracker. And so I know it by heart. And Cassie loves the Nutcracker. So I knew that she would choose it. I think it was a no-brainer for all of us. And then it just womp womp.
For you.
No. For me.
For you. Thank you for being a pick-me girl.
Oh, please.
So this follows 2 sisters as their father dies.
Yep.
Then they get to a guardian who has a
Drosselmeyer.
who has little fae creatures in his, not little, they're fae creatures that he has turned into his own personal slaves.
Yep.
Servants, slaves.
Yeah. He claims that he is an inventor.
Correct.
But what he's actually doing is going to the fae realm and enslaving the fae into different sort of
tedious tasks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're basically his servants in his house. Instead of paying for workers, he just curses and woodifies the fae creatures.
So the 2 sisters that we follow are Louisa and Clara, and they find a little Nutcracker who is the Prince of Fae in the Fae realm, or King of Fae. Is he
Prince of Fairy?
He's Prince of something.
You listen to the audiobook too?
No.
He says, I feel like that's the way in the audiobook. I feel like that's the way he says it. He is like, I'm a Prince of Fairy.
So okay. They save him, basically, and he takes them to his realm. So we follow these 2 human moral sisters. And we follow their story once they get to the realm with the Nutcracker.
Yes.
So
and his cousin.
Well, when they get to the realm, they meet the Sugar Plum Fairy. And he's fantastic.
Can I just say my first qualm with this book? Okay. I rated it high, but I got a lot of dislikes on it. But my first qualm is that there is no better name other than Fairy. That is what the kingdom's called. There's no side kingdoms. It is just, you are coming to the kingdom of Fairy. I am the Prince of Fairy. And I'm like, we all know that it's a fairy or a mystical type of kingdom. I'm like, could they not have called it something? In every other Nutcracker retelling or type of story, there's a name for the world or the area you're in.
Yeah, there's multiple, with Perinthian, there are multiple different courts within the Akatar, and I feel like there should be here too, because you have the Unseelie, and they technically have a king and a court, and then the
I think
regular
she tried
ones
to
don't.
keep it. I think that what Rebecca tried to do, which is the author, she tried to keep it simple because fantasy can be very too complex. She tried to keep it one book, one story, under 500 pages, and move on.
And that's fair, but I also think that there was some other stuff that could have been left out in exchange for maybe having 2 different realms. And I love how Tarah brings this up, and then I'm over here ranting about
literally,
it.
So I'm over here, like, going through my notes and highlights, and I have 5 times where I'm like, could we not just call the realm something other than fairy with a capital F?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, I want a
Fair.
fun name.
I honestly
Name
forgot
it
that was
Gumdrop
something.
for all I care. Like, I mean, but just call it, like, something.
Yeah, I feel mixed about that because there's another book that was recently presented to us as an option to read, and I immediately looked at it and was like, no, because
What book?
I don't know. It was out
Okay.
of all the choices that we had to read for our next adventure.
And it had something with fairy in it.
It wasn't with fairy, but it had like in the kingdom of Gobblegook, these stupid bitches with all the vowels in their names. Like I can't pronounce it, so I was like, immediately I'm out. Immediately out because I'm not a fantasy girl.
You liked how she kept it simple.
Yeah, it
and
was
you
simple.
liked
Kiss.
I
Keep
did-
it simple, stupid.
I honestly I liked it too. I actually didn't think that was an ick for me.
Yeah.
I actually didn't even remember that was something that happened. So that shows you how much I absorb when I read.
Yeah.
I absorbed everything other than Louisa in her stupid chapters.
Oh my god.
So every time it was mentioned, which it was mentioned a lot in her chapters.
Listen,
Honestly, I think Louisa, we could have done without Louisa in general. Like, I think Louisa could have been left out of the book.
I support anyone who is very okay with themselves and very open and very sexually open with themselves and, you know, headstrong,
But she's a
female.
bitch.
But God, she was annoying.
She is
I
absolutely
do not
awful
care
to her
how
sister.
promiscuous you are or whatever the word is. I don't give a fuck who you're screwing. I don't care if you screwed half the kingdom. Shut up sometimes.
Yeah.
Just because you talk does not mean it's quality.
Talk about a pick-me girl.
And she was mean
Louisa
to Lear,
was the number
too.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
She spent the entire
And he
book.
did nothing to
again,
her.
There will be spoilers, so if you don't want to hear them, don't listen. Anyways, she spent the entire book trying to get this man to have sex with her. And then at the
She didn't want
end,
to.
when he's like, oh my God, you're my mate. I'm in love with you. Let's have sex every day, all day. She starts questioning herself. And she's like, oh, I'm just this slut girl. And why would he care about me? And of course, he's sleeping in it. Bitch, shut the fuck
But
up.
he also said to her, I feel like in not the beginning of the book, but
Oh, he
early
was
on
like,
into the book, he
"You're
was,
a slut,
Yeah, he was
man."
just like, I could never sleep with you and blah blah blah. I was like, okay, like that'd be the end of it for me. Like, why are you chasing this man? Tarah talks about how badly female characters are written, and Louisa was definitely written terribly, like terribly.
Oh, she 100% was. I think she was someone that, like Cassie said, we could have done without.
Yeah.
And we could have really done without Lore or whatever his name was, Lear.
the Nutcracker. Let's not forget.
The blood sucking Nutcracker.
He's the main.
I don't give a
like,
shit.
thing of the
don't
story.
Make it
I can't
don't make it
remember any of
repelling
the
then,
names.
because we could have done without him too.
This was like for me. This was like 2 books. Okay,
It was.
I
Yes.
had every time Clara was in a scene, I was interested. I
Or
was
Finn.
engaged.
Yeah.
And then when you meet Finn, oh my gosh, like I
Finn
highlighted
was
one of the first thing
fantastic.
he does. You don't even know his name or that he's the Sugar Plum Fairy. And I'm just like, the Fae that rescued Clara. He's great. I love him right off the bat.
So the reason I gave this 5 stars, and we touched on it a little bit when we had a discussion about it, I gave it 5 stars not because of the plot, because the plot sucked. It was
Terrible.
because of a flamboyant Sugar Plum Fairy with pink hair. He
That
was
pink-haired motherfucker.
he was so fucking well made. I could have
Yeah.
read a whole book about him and Clara and been done.
Look, that's the next one.
No, it's Alice in Wonderland, the next one.
But it's Finn and Clara.
Right, with the Alice in Wonderland creatures or characters.
Yeah. But isn't it just their story? Like, I mean, they're going to a new world and
No, Alice is it's a wide choose with Alice and the Cheshire Cat and I think the Mad Hatter.
never mind.
So I haven't read the next one, but Finn was my favorite character out of the whole book.
Yes.
He
I didn't
reminded
know it
me
was a
very
wide
much.
choose.
Yeah. He reminded me very much of the characters that I love and adore. Hal from Howl's Moving Castle, very flamboyant, very, and not who I go for in my real life. Joe's very manly. And then Carden from Cruel Prince from Holly Black, he's very flamboyant and he's very like, just, you know this because the Cruel Prince, the main girl is stronger than he is. Like he lets her fight his battles. I really loved Finn because he was that, but also he saves Clara.
He does. And
he might have to fuck her for like 7 hours straight.
But he saves her. It was a whole Princess Leia in Jabba's lair situation, if anybody knows.
But see, I love Star Wars.
I do love Star Wars. So I was like, this is the vibes that it's giving me. Is the Rat King just being like, Hooba Chaba.
Look, I literally, so like in my head, when it talks about like that cave, in my head, it kind of is like the Jabba hut with just like people in cages up top and rats instead of like weird little Star Wars characters.
Say, as much as like this book was not top of the list, one of my favorites, there were some things that were really great. I loved the imagery in it. There is so much, like when they're describing the Rat King, all of that ooey gooey gory. I loved it. And even seeing those glimpses into Clara's mind, like when she's talking about how she's going to paint something, my brain doesn't work that way. Like I do not have an artsy brain to where I see brushstrokes and what colors I would use. And so getting to see that glimpse into Clara's head when she was like, oh, I'll have to paint him and this is how I'm going to paint him. That was phenomenal because never in a million years could I write that because I don't know how any of that works and I would never be able to imagine seeing those things. And so I think as much as we could have done without something and without a certain character and as much as imagery might have been off because of something, that was phenomenal. And at the end of the day, I think the author is a fantastic author. And whether or not I like this book regardless, if there is something else that she writes that piques my interest, I will 100% read it.
Yeah. I think that also we have to give into the account that this book was supposed to not be so heavy. It was supposed to be easy and fun and just something very simple. So
I'm over here laughing because I forgot that Cassie and another one of our friends, we were talking about, so in the rat orgy, where I said, I can't decide if swimming in a pool of melted cheese sounds amazing or disgusting.
I mean, are you swimming by yourself? Because, like, if it's by yourself, I feel like it's fine.
No, there were a bunch
But then if you're with other people, no, I'm saying for you.
Yeah.
If it's,
so then we got into a conversation. Cassie said, I feel like it depends on the kind of cheese. Is it brie or nacho cheese? And then is it the good nacho cheese or the gross kind of nacho cheese? And then
but there has to be context because our movie theater recently changed the type of nacho cheese that they give you with the pretzel bites, and the new nacho cheese is not
disgusting.
Yeah, it just ruins them.
I feel like if the Sugar Plum Fairy is giving you the nacho cheese, he's gonna make it delicious.
Okay, so I said,
will he though?
But my cheese pool,
he would.
What would your cheese pool be?
He's
my
gonna
cheese
put
pool,
some jalapeno in there, and you're gonna be spicy.
Yeah, it would be white queso because it's like thin enough to bathe in.
100%.
And then I was also like, okay,
give me some tortillas and call it a day, man.
I can be your tortilla. I can be your tortilla. But then,
are you saying you want to swim a thing of queso with me? Because like I'm down.
Jen, we're going into another category here. But then I said I was leaning more towards disgusting because cleaning up would be a nightmare. But then they had magic candies that clean them up, and I don't know. Maybe I could get behind that. Because I don't want cheese in my crevice.
But
so Holly did like the nacho cheese pool.
That's the only thing I liked about this book.
So when you say that it would be hard to clean up, you're saying because it's everywhere? Like
in the crevices.
But people do it on
Crevasse.
Okay, but see, this is what I...
But just because people do it does not mean that we would do it.
Who in the real world has nacho cheese pools?
No, I'm just saying like...
You ever been to a country like party? I mean, I've seen crazier things.
Yeah, I'm going to the wrong kind of
hot tub in a truck bed.
Out in the mountains, I've seen some wild
I'm just thinking of people
things.
doing it at the beach and the sand everywhere.
Yeah, and I don't like going to the beach because of the sand. I said
Sand
to
in
my mom,
cheese? No.
Sand in my cheese. No.
Yeah, no.
That is a quote. So put it on Tarah's gravestone. That is a quote
instead of sandy cheeks, we're doing cheesy cheeks.
I would definitely be queso right up there with you.
Yeah, because the white queso it's enough, it's thin enough to where it's just like, it's enjoyable.
You can also wear a bathing suit. You don't have to like sit there and like...
Well, they had the magic candies that just clean them up. But the whole The whole orgy scene was disgusting, unnecessary. It was written about for too long. It was just...
So it was wild.
It was wild. And I was like, when is this going to be over?
I've never like read a scene like that before. This was my first experience reading something like that.
Ooh.
And I was just like, what? What
Because
is
some
this?
of it, they weren't even fucking, is what Clara said.
Yeah.
They were just sitting there and like dry humping so it could look like that. Because he was trying to save her because the Rat King was making them have this orgy.
Yeah, it was also tiring him out. And he had used so much of his power. And so that he
and they wanted him to do that.
Yeah. Now, I will say, I do love Clara's whole little whip thing and the fact that he can like make it real for her to keep afterwards. Or like he's like, oh yeah, we'll find a way to make that. I'm here for that.
I love the progression of Clara and Finn from like Clara up front is kind of like this character that you can see is going to have a lot of growth. Like right from the start, like she talks about how like she's not as open as her sister, but she's got that little adventurous spirit. You know, she's the one who finds the Nutcracker first and the little room and, you know, different things. And I feel like hers is just when you start reading about her, you can become very interested. And then you get slapped with this stupid Louisa chick, her sister, who
and her
up until 17% in, I was like,
there.
man, this girl, she's going to be wild and I'm going to love Louisa. Like I went into this after one chapter and was like, oh, she's going to be fun.
She wasn't though. She
Next
was
chapter later, no.
So I felt like, and also, I guess with sister dynamics, maybe that's a thing, but I was never jealous of my sister, and I don't think my sister was ever jealous of me. I felt like Louisa took a really, really bad turn when Clara found Finn, or Finn found Clara because he saved her, right?
Well, he kind of starts off by kidnapping her.
Technically.
But he saves her
saving
because
her.
isn't there a rat that's coming up from the water and he saves her, right?
Yeah. Like he's saving her, but then he's like trying to take her.
Right.
I mean, he kind of like coerces.
But I also feel like at the same time, and what we didn't point out was Finn and Lear are cousins. So Finn, I think when Finn and Clara decide they want to pursue a sexual relationship and then it turns into a relationship later on, I think Louisa's jealous. And you can see that
because she's
100%.
not getting that from Lear and she wants it. But also she doesn't, because the first half of the book she's talking about how much she can't stand him.
Yeah.
And I think that there were a couple moments where it almost felt like Clara and Lear were flirting and Louisa like was not okay with that and was like butthurt, but then at the same time she didn't like him. So why was she so butthurt? The whole like Louisa being jealous of Clara and Lear when they didn't even have a relationship.
Correct, yeah.
Louisa's character as a whole just confuses the shit out of me. I don't think that she had
she's ridiculous.
Enough character development to like rectify with the fact that she apologizes to her sister at the end.
Yeah, and now she's queen.
Clara deserves to be queen, not Louisa. I wish they would have made Clara the hero. That's the way
I do too, but I think that Clara being with Finn was better than if she was with the Nutcracker.
Yeah, she didn't need to be with Lear.
I think Finn brought out a really good wild spirit in her. One of the scenes that I really liked, which is this is more smutty than it is spicy. Yeah. So it is a lot of smut. Finn and Clara get a little cat and mouse.
Yeah,
I love that. That's one of my favorite scenes.
That was
Holly hated it. So.
I love it. I asked you earlier if you like cat and mouse, and you do. I love that scene. Now, maybe not with the peppermint.
Yeah, with the peppermint stick, which I'm not going to go into details, but sounds painful.
That got a little...
tied up with
dark,
tying her up with black licorice ropes. Oh, okay.
Like at least
but
it's red licorice, so I can
have
eat
a bone to pick with you, Jennifer.
Why?
So in the last episode, we talk about how much you hate somebody calling them sugar.
Yeah.
He calls her sugar like every time he talks to her.
So he does, but it doesn't bother me because he's a fairy.
Right. I don't think it bothered me as much because, listen...
You should see the face I'm making. I'm appalled. I'm appalled.
I must have zoned it out because sugar is not one of my favorite pet names. It will never be. I really don't like it. I think when people call people sugar, I think of an old lady at a nursing home going, "Come here, sugar, let me give you some candy." Like that's what I think of, right? I don't think of a man. So I must have blocked that out because Finn, honestly, I loved him so much. I seen a lot of red flags that should have been red flags.
Oh yeah,
from a get go. But you know when you're a reader and you love one of those characters. you really like one of those characters, you kind of block it out.
But he didn't let us down.
I blocked it out. He did.
Finn didn't let us down.
No, he didn't.
And
No, go ahead.
To your point, real quick, there's a quote that I highlighted and I have a little note with it, but this is Finn talking to Clara. And he says, "You have a magic of your own, darling, your talent and your kindness and that maddening scent." He inhales deeply from my hair, then lowers his voice. "I'd like to eat you whole. I need to have you again, sugar." So he actually does say sugar
a lot.
And I was like, maybe he's evil and really going to eat her, but it's also sweet. Because I zoned it out, man. I was here for Finn.
I'm so sorry. I think that also what to keep in mind is I read this before I read Done and Dusted, and we've read so many. But not just in general, but we did
read this one a little while ago.
Yeah. And but I also want to point out to our listeners to check the trigger warnings if you go into this one, because it's very dark, some of it.
Yes,
it's very it can be very triggering. And the orgy scene, attempted rape, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's talks of sexual assault, and honestly, Louisa sexually assaults
Lear multiple times.
Yes.
Yes.
And you can flip a coin however you want it, but she really did.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
Always
check your trigger warnings.
Yeah.
Something else that is kind of an ick for me, I guess, almost, is when everybody in the book has to be mated. So I don't mind fated mates. It's not a huge thing for me. But Finn and Clara are mated, and Louisa and Lear are also mated. And I don't think that they needed to be.
I didn't think
they are.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
because he talks about like how
I'm so glad you have quotes on this.
Hold on.
Listen, I read this
Finn
book.
just doesn't tell Clara that like that's what it is. Like Lear tells Louisa,
right?
Because Lear's like, "Oh, I have to have a reason to be feeling this way about you because you're so freaking terrible."
Finn is just like,
and Finn's like, "I love you. You're great. Come be here, my little artist, Clara."
Like I love their dynamic.
But I think he does tell her. I think that it happens.
Near the end, maybe?
No, it happens when it is near the end. It happens right before they meet his people. When they're in the tree trunk or whatever, and they're about to cross the bridge.
I thought that was...
That's Lear and Louisa.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I know, but I don't think Finn and Clara are mates.
Oh, they are. 100%. That's why she smells so good to him specifically.
Okay, I might have just understood it differently. I think that also we have to keep in mind that they're cousins, so maybe the prince has to have a fated mate because he's a certain kind of fairy.
Well, it says that there could be multiple. Like, it says that you could have multiple. They're
mates?
not... Yeah. Like, you can have multiple chosens, and you can deny them.
Yeah.
Which is what Lear should have done with Louisa.
100%.
100%. He should have punted her across the fucking field.
Ending is the most disappointing thing that could ever happen.
Absolutely.
When I got like 50% in, I was like, I hope that the only reason all this stupid bad shit is happening to Clara is so that in the end, Louisa will die.
Well, Finn, I feel like, and also I think Finn was the strongest character of them all.
Oh, yeah.
Only because he gave Louisa the satchel of crap. Candies. He gave, is
that an official term? The satchel of crap.
Well, and also, Lur also says he's one of the most powerful fairies. Like, my cousin is one of those most powerful
I think
fairies.
they mentioned it a couple of times.
And so I feel like he carried the book, and I felt like Clara carried the book. I really could have done without the Nutcracker, and I could have done without Louisa.
For a Nutcracker retelling, to not have the Nutcracker in it would have made this better.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have 100%. And I also wish they would have made the Rat King a attractive Rat King. I was not thinking like full on Rat King. Oh, because listen, some of the
disgusting.
Some of the description of the Rat King, I was like, this is fucking nasty. When she was like bouncing up and down on his lap, not one of the characters, but when he was having an orgy, and she's talking about the Rat King, and I'm just like, ugh. I like puked a little in my mouth because I was like, I'm reading this for a pink-haired, flamboyant male. I'm not reading it for some hairy-ass rat that's banging every chick he wants to.
Yeah, it was a little disturbing.
And rolling around in cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, cheesy hair. Cheesy hair.
Okay,
rat.
So I think that also... one of my favorite quotes, though, that Lur actually says is, no, I wouldn't call him a friend. It's much worse than that. He's family.
Oh, they say it right here.
That was one of my favorites.
So I looked up. So they don't call it mates. They call it chosen. But it's the same idea. Like, I don't remember whose chapter. I think this is maybe So this is Clara's chapter, and it says, she is his chosen, in reference to Louisa and Lear, and Finn is mine.
Oh.
So they do verify that they are both mates.
So you don't like fated mates?
It's not that I don't like it, but I don't think that every single character in the book needs to be a fated mate.
Okay.
And I feel that way with Sarah J. Maas, too. Like, Feyre and Rhysand are fated, and don't get me wrong, I am 1,000% here. Nesta,
hold on, time out. So we're gonna get
spoilers.
We're getting into Actar on this too.
Just for a second.
Okay,
because she does it too. I don't think that all three of the sisters needed to be mated.
But
I think that it was unnecessary.
But that's how the Fae are.
But not everybody has a mate.
What do you mean?
Like, not all fays.
Almost all fairies and magical creatures do.
But I don't think that everybody in the book needs to have a mate.
This is where her favorite genre, historical fiction, comes into play. Because people who read fantasy a lot, like me and Tarah, we're over here like, what's the fuck's wrong with you?
I don't. Because I don't.
Fated mate is a thing.
I don't need them all to have...
Then don't read fantasy.
Mate. Okay,
I agree, though, that Lear and Louisa should not have been
another fucking fantasy book. Because I'm not, like, I don't mind it, but not every single fucking character needs to have a fated mate.
Well,
I can understand that, though.
Like, not everyone has a fated mate or a mate. Azriel does not have a mate. Moore does not have a mate. None of the, oh shit, what's his fucking name?
Okay, but the sisters.
The fox face guy's brother doesn't have a mate. What the fuck's his name? I can't think
Tamlin?
No, Tamlin doesn't have okay, Tamlin doesn't have a mate.
Tamlin's fucking trash, though. He doesn't
do you see what I'm saying?
Mate.
Like, you have so many people that aren't. Yes, the sisters don't have mates or have mates.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of those are more...
Are they royal?
Well, no.
Because, like, a lot of times it's, like, all, like, in fantasy in general.
So, I mean, Rhys is the only one that has a fucking mate that's royal.
You're going to get fated mates into royalty.
Feyre royal.
Not Feyre, but Rhys is. And so he got a mate.
Oh, he's the most...
I know.
Fabulous.
Gross.
High king. What?
Well, what I was going to say, a lot of
Lord.
times is in fantasy, you end up with these fated mates that you don't know is royal until like book like 7, 8, 9. So like a lot of times people will come out to, and because they're always like of some importance and that's why they've been chosen and mated or they're so happy they are. Like that's like a big thing in fantasy. I haven't read this series yet.
I mean, Feyre is supposed to be like top dog, so I guess you can call her royal. She's not royal in my book, but we're getting way off topic of fated mates.
Anyways, I don't think that they both needed to be fated.
Okay,
like
that's
mated.
fair.
Sorry, I don't think that they both. I don't know. I just don't feel like it was necessary.
I do want to say, if you are going to read this book, don't do the audiobook, because I did the audio exclusively and I hated it. The narrator was terrible. I feel like it wasn't, I don't know if monotone is the right word for it, but it just wasn't, there wasn't a whole lot of inflection. There wasn't a whole lot of passion.
Oh yeah, it was insta love. Very much
it was.
So.
And just the narration was just not done well. And especially like, maybe that's why I remember him calling her sugar, because it was so cringe to me in the way that it sounded.
But
like, I'm going to
Dusted.
taste you now, sugar. Like, it just, I don't,
Even
not
when you come from a
fan.
land of candy, though, and you want to call somebody sugar as a pet name, that to me is
That's
okay.
fine, yeah.
I'd rather have the country
If
book
you
called
had-
sugar
If he
than
called
the
her
fairy
peppermint.
fucking prince.
But that's where we differ, because we are fantasy readers. So we're in that. We're in that fated mates.
Wait, are we admitting that I'm not a fantasy reader now?
No, I think
have I sealed my fate in that I'm not a fantasy reader?
You love to
fated
hate
mates?
fantasy. You will keep reading it, and you will keep enjoying the stories as you're reading them, and then when you get done, you're gonna go, I hate that.
Yeah, I think
That's
that. Yeah, I think that what Tarah said is very true, and I think that you do enjoy fantasy, but it has to fit your box of fantasy. And fantasy is never going to fit like a historical fiction.
Yeah.
So that's
there was, well, except Rebecca Ross. We talked about that. I feel like Divine Rivals read like a historical fiction, and I almost told you not to read it because I thought you would like it because it read like a
bawling my eyes
historical
out,
fiction. So yeah, I think that's true. I think that I like fantasy, but I maybe like it in
small increments.
Yeah. In my own doses.
I didn't mind the fated mates. Just going back to that point, I think that we could have just done without two one POV
Yeah.
and 2 characters.
That's
Yep.
fair.
That's just something that
I didn't mind Finn and Clara being mated, but I didn't like Lear and Louisa being mated.
But I think that's because
just-
we hate Louisa.
That's
yes,
fair.
yeah.
That's fair.
I didn't
That's
really
fair.
have like
And at
Lure
the
for
end-
me
That's
was
fair.
indifferent. I was very indifferent on
So
him.
maybe I'm hating on fated mates when I really just
Hate the
just because
characters
I have
that are
so much
fated because you don't want good things to
fucking hate
happen to
for
them.
Louisa.
Like, I didn't want good things to happen to Lear and
That's
Louisa.
completely fair.
I did not want him to get his curse broken. I wanted, like, I want Finn to go and be the king or the prince or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I was hoping that Lear would get cracked in half and lost.
I think what also drew me to Finn is he left the whole kingdom to save her. He left the
yeah.
whole hands in the kingdom. He didn't give a shit what happened to the kingdom.
No, he said, "Fuck
He was
y'all,
gonna
here you go,
save
good luck."
Clara.
We all
And
love
I
a guy who's
love
like,
that.
all y'all can die. I'm saving my one.
Yep.
Burn the world for her.
Burn the world
Yeah,
down.
Let's do it.
absolutely.
We'll go live in another realm. It's right over the bridge.
Did you have something to hate on, Holly?
I was gonna say maybe at the end there's a scene at the end where he almost like because he has to suck her blood to not be a
Oh.
nutcracker, okay?
Yeah,
and then
okay.
she's like, "Stop sucking my blood! You're gonna kill me!" He should have just turned vampire nutcracker, sucked her blood, killed her, left her body there.
And we could
Ding,
have
done,
Claire,
dang.
and we could have Claire done a white shoes.
Yeah,
With cousins.
exactly. Yeah,
That
See,
would have been really interesting.
we should have written the book.
So actually,
Maybe we need
Rebecca did
to.
really well with the book. I will say that, and I think what I like about Rebecca, which is the author, I follow her on TikTok now and everything else. She saw one person do a bad review on how she didn't see triggers, and she went through the audiobook.
Yeah.
And she went to her publisher and was like, "These have to be published. Get your narrator to say this
Yeah.
before they go into this because I will not have another reader read this book without the triggers."
Respect.
Well, and I did switch
That's
from
good.
audio to the ebook, and I started to enjoy it a lot more once
told
I
you
was
guys too.
reading the ebook. So I definitely, I think that makes a huge difference.
everybody
the
told me
media.
to, but I didn't. So I guess
Well,
it's,
then that's your fault.
I know it's my own fault. I
Pick
don't
me,
listen
girl.
to what anybody else tells me. Don't tell me what to do.
So literally one of my notes, Holly, from this is also, is this about vampires or fae? I bet garlic would make him stop in the land of sweets.
That's a good point. Yeah,
That
it
was
was
a good one.
It was weird.
We're so similar, so I'm not very
Do not
shocked that they
recommend.
hate it and we love it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. I really didn't. There were a lot of things that I think were like well done.
Anyway,
I just hated Louisa. I think I'm allowed
agree
to
with
hate
that,
on
though.
one
I agree with it
character.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's just like, and I didn't even get into her quotes that I hated, but literally half of my notes and highlights, my little notes underneath is, why is she so terrible? Why is she so hateful? Why
Yeah.
is she so...
Oh, I
this,
called Louisa a bitch like every
Yes.
5 seconds. And it was well
And
deserved.
my favorite moment of the book is when Clara, like, just, like, straight up looks at her and is like...
Nope.
Screw you. Why
I'm
do you
done.
have to ruin everything? You're just jealous. You're just mad that you don't have what I have.
Yeah.
And, apparently you want it. Side note, apparently she doesn't. She gets offered it. And then she's like, oh, I just wanted to fuck you. I don't want love.
Yeah.
Come
Like-
on.
Louisa.
Stop being a pick me girl, Louisa. Fuck.
And then
It's
she
a
still gets
lot.
to be fucking queen.
Oh,
Fine.
right. Oh, yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I hope she dies in one of the future books. Like, I hope
They're,
they bring
they're
her
no
back
longer in the
to
book, so I
kill
think
her.
Rebecca honestly probably was
Realized. Yeah.
that she wrote like horde characters because they're not in any of the other books from what I understand.
Oh, God.
Finn and Clara are in the second one, and then it goes into Alice in Wonderland. I think is no.
Yeah, and
no,
then
no, no.
Alice
No.
and then
Wizard of Oz.
Oz.
And then it doesn't touch on any of the ones from A Quart of Sugar and Spice.
So would you
Okay.
recommend at the end of the day?
would I recommend if you
To
are
the right
like
person.
I think I would have to know your reading choice. If you are like me that really loved Howl and loved Carden and loved those flamboyant characters who would burn the world down for their women, absolutely, I would recommend.
Yeah.
I think that
just
you
focus
would.
on Clara's chapters.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think going into it, you have to realize that you're not going to like 2 of the characters and you're not going to like one of the POVs. But if you can get past that, maybe skip them. There was nothing in those chapters that were like, had to know.
Then why even read the book if you're not going to read half of it?
No, I mean, I gave
Maybe
it a
rip 'em
3,
out.
but even 3 stars for me is a good book.
It's average, yeah.
Like it's a good book, and I think for the right person, it probably hits on a really good book.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't that right person.
I will say it got me out of 2 months reading slump.
Yeah.
So
I would not recommend.
I always
And
get
I'll say
slumpy
this,
around Christmas.
for me, like, I gave it 4 stars almost because of how much they could make me hate one character and love another.
That's
like, I don't think I have ever, like, you always have, like, your bad characters that, like, you either are a villain type of person where you always root for the villains in a sense, or you always root for, like, the good characters, right? Or, like, the ones that you think do the most justice or whatever. But in this, you have this morally gray pink-haired fairy who is just awesome.
Chef's kiss.
And you can fall in love with him. And then on the other hand, the people that you go into the story expecting to have to root for, you just absolutely despise, even though they're not really doing anything wrong. I mean, like, Louisa's just annoying. Over at the end of the day, she's annoying and selfish. And that's why I hate her so much. But, like, they do a good job at bringing that feeling out to the point that, you know, we're sitting here having discussion.
So I guess, yeah, we would have to know your reading choices and know more about you before recommending the book. I think we have so many mixed emotions about the book, and Holly is right. If you have to skip chapters to like it, why read it?
Yeah.
I do agree with that. So
I came for the Nutcracker and stayed for the melted cheese pools.
Yeah.
That's all I have to
love
say
that
about
for
the
you.
book.
So that's all we have on A Quart of Sugar and Spice. Our second part of this is going to be about romance tropes. We all have probably very different things that we look for in romance books. And we, you know, just like everyone in the world, we all go into books with some tropes that we do not like. And we have some tropes that we absolutely adore. So for us lit talkers, we have wrote down 2 tropes that we really absolutely love and 1 trope that we do not like, or maybe don't like as much. Did you want me to
start?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So I know that Jenn and I have this one in common, and it's fake dating. I like a marriage of convenience just as much as fake dating. So, like, they're interchangeable for me. Maybe not for everybody, but they are for me. Sometimes I feel like it ends up being the same thing. You know, this marriage of convenience is basically them dating to find out that they love each other and want to stay married or whatever it might be. If I find out a book's fake dating, I'm immediately picking it up. I'm like, okay, yep, you've sold me. I'm there. I don't give a shit about any other trope in the book. Horrible things could happen. They could be horrible people, but it's fake dating. I'm picking it up and I'm giving it a shot. The other one for me is Grumpy X Sunshine. I absolutely
What is that?
love
trope?
it. So it is when you have a character, and it's usually the male who's grumpy, but sometimes it's the woman who's grumpy, and I'm all there for a grumpy woman as well.
I forgot about Grumpy Sunshine.
Yes, I love Grumpy Sunshine. So you have one character that's just super grumpy. They're, like, quiet, reserved. They don't want anything to do with anybody. You're pretty sure that they hate the world, and they're going to end up a recluse. And then you have that just, like, golden boy, golden girl, sunshine. Ooh, I am so happy. There is nothing that can bring me down. Toxic positivity. And they end up together.
Literally my marriage.
Yeah.
I love my husband, but I tell people, I'm like, if you could find 2 different people, it would be me and Matt.
Absolutely.
I am a golden retriever, and he's a bear who wants to stay in a cave.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And that's, I just love it. It's absolutely great. I have no complaints about it. I just love seeing that grumpy man come out of his shell, or that grumpy woman turn into this, like, social butterfly. And I mean, they don't always turn into, you know what I mean, like this happy, but I love seeing those people be pulled out of their shell. And I love the transformation that you get with that. So those are my, like,
Top tier.
yeah, I will read them. You hand them to me. You tell me it's one of those 2 things. No problem. Let me jump right into it. No complaints. Now, the one trope that I don't love is a surprise pregnancy. I have come into, like, if there is a little bit of warning that it's going to happen, I'm cool. I don't mind it. If it's at the very end, like, spoiler, Josh and Hazel, it was at the very end.
I still
And
don't
it
like
was,
it. I didn't like it.
I didn't, but it didn't ruin the whole book for me. Like, it was so far at the end that, like, I still absolutely love the book, but I could have done without the last, like, 5 or 6 chapters where that was happening. So it is not, it's just, it doesn't hit for me. It's not it.
I guess I'm going to talk about tropes, but I don't read a whole lot of romance novels to know.
No, just smutty books.
Yeah, I just read a lot of smutty books. So I don't read a lot of romance novels enough to be like, oh, that's an obvious trope. I've learned more about them as I've gone along. But I'd say I do like the grumpy sunshine because I do feel like that's very close to my relationship. And I feel like I've always dated guys who it's like, oh, they hate everybody else, but they love me. So, I guess that's true to my own relationship. And I don't really have another one that I love. I mean, fake dating is fine. Marriage of convenience is fine. I do like a slow burn over an insta love, just because I feel like that leaves me wanting more. And insta
You
love
like that
is
tension.
yeah, and insta love is just so unpractical. And I think the practical person in me who doesn't like fantasy is like, okay, so you fall in love, but a year down the line, you're going to realize that like he's this crazy person, and then you're gonna like I just see it happen all the time in real life where people fall in love, get married, and then get divorced like a year later. So to me, it's just not worth the hassle. And then some that I don't like is I'm with Cassie. I don't like the surprise pregnancy one because it's just kind of a sore subject for me, and two, because I feel like it's so easy. I feel like it's such an easy way out. When I see it on TV shows, when I see it in movies, I'm like, okay, so they've run out of ideas, so somebody has to get pregnant. Like, that's the next storyline that we're doing. I feel like it's just not very creative. It's just not... It's kind of an ick for me, for sure. And then I don't like Mafia stuff. Maybe it's because I've been ruined because I read a book. Probably the worst book I've ever read in my life was a Mafia book.
What was it?
You know what book it was.
Oh,
it was
okay.
It was Cruel Prince, but not the Cruel Prince that everybody
no.
loves.
It was Cruel
This-
Prince by M.A. Lee.
Yeah, she was a local author that...
Sorry, no tea, no shade, but I really,
There is no tea, no shade. It just sucked.
It was...
Tea or shade.
It was just
It was
not,
awful.
and it was one of the first ever like romance novels that I read.
Well, God, she did you wrong.
I know, and I feel so bad saying that, but it was...
Why do you feel bad?
It was like half a star.
Don't write anymore. Whoever it was. Who
Stop,
was it?
Jen!
Who was it again?
God.
It was a... it was a book that we read with friends.
Yeah.
And the author lives local to Kentucky. And that book was just not
My
good.
book didn't even have page numbers.
It did have page numbers.
No.
It was
That's
everywhere.
like what page you're on. I don't know.
It was...
Who knows?
You go on Goodreads and it has like a 1 point something.
Yeah, it was not good. And I just I'm reading a book right now that was recommended to me by other people, and it's called Dom. And the reason I really wanted that they recommended it to me was because I wanted a plus size female main character, because it's hard for me to relate to these little twig girls who are like, I'm being thrown around like a feather. So just can't relate to that. But Mafia stuff is just so overplayed, and I feel like it's really dramatic, and it's just not my scene, not my vibe. Don't love the Mafia stuff. So.
I
feel like you just need a good Mafia, though. I don't know if you
Sophie Lark does a really good Mafia. It's Brutal Prince, I think it is, and it's Marriage of Convenience, and I felt like it was done really well. But I think the people, too, that recommend books to you don't know you well enough to recommend books.
Yeah. I mean, that could be true. I just, maybe I'm just super picky, but... Yeah, Mafia.
And you
has
have
just
that
never...
right to be super picky.
And for me, Mafia, the whole time I read it or watch it or anything, I'm like, okay, Mafia is so unrealistic. Why would you ever get into this? You're going to be killed one day. You're going to have to kill people until you're eventually killed. So I'm just waiting for that moment. I feel like there's excitement, but it's all predictable excitement.
I love those movies.
And I don't love the look of a Mafia guy.
I could get down with that.
Yeah, I don't love the look of a Mafia guy. And to me, I just
what's your look of the Mafia guy?
Like the slick back hair, greaser.
Oh no, that's only the Italian Mafia.
I don't know the other kinds of mafia.
The English Mafia is different. I mean, you've got Mafia in every
I think
genre.
that you need the right Mafia book. And now we're going to read a Mafia book. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are my good things and my icky things. That's it.
Good and icky.
Good and icky.
All right. Mine was really hard because I feel like most of the characters that I relate to the most are more than just one trope with their relationships.
Fair.
So I don't feel like I love one trope over another, but I don't usually only read romance. So I feel like maybe that's where it's a little bit different. Because I read a lot of the romantasy and different things. So there's always more than one trope in there. But right now, I'm really loving a good friends to lovers. So... Well,
I'm with
my
Jess.
apologies.
here.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It's a reflex.
But I'm starting to think about it. Maybe it's just because my recent book obsession. That's kind of what it is. And you get this like slow building where you actually get to know the characters for themselves on their own before they come together as like a unit or a couple, and then you can see how that will or won't work or why they will or won't have struggles. And I feel like it helps me to understand the characters or relate with them more. And so I really love it. My other one is the complete opposite and is rivals for Jenn's sake or enemies to lovers. I love when people just hate each other and then they're like, you know what, we're so terrible and we hate each other and we're fighting on the wrong side of things of each other, but we're gonna see what happens anyways. And those are they're usually fun and spicy. So
Definitely. I agree with you. I love enemies to lovers.
and then
Especially in romance or in fantasy, because it's usually like a knife scene, like a knife to throat scene, or they're fighting each other, or they're on opposite sides of the spectrum, and it's so good. It's the banter and the tension and everything with that. I think the difference between enemies to lovers, just to touch on it, is enemies to lovers I consider more fantasy, where rivals to lovers I consider more romance. Or
I can see
everyday.
that. Yeah, I can see that. And then the trope I dislike is amnesia.
Oh my God! Yes,
We were talking about that one.
Praise Jesus, man! I forget how many tropes there are. We were talking about that the other day when we did our podcast outing when we went to Joseph Beth and we did a little challenge, TikTok to come, or it's already posted. Amnesia sucks.
When I pick it up and I read it, I'm like, oh, we already know exactly what this is going to be like. Oh my God, yes. And the only thing now that I'll watch with amnesia in it or read about, I mean, I don't read it. I just don't. I won't. But I'll watch 50 First Dates every day.
I love 50 First Dates. But okay, so I have a question for you, Tarah. Talking about amnesia, is that something that if you read in the synopsis, you are straight like, no. Done.
Yeah, like done. I'm not gonna pick it up. No. I'm not gonna really like waste my time. Now, and it's different for me like when that's the basis of the story versus like when you have like a whole book and you get to know characters and then like something happens and then it causes amnesia for a little bit. And then, you know how it's gonna work out. But like when that's the book, like, and that's the main conflict, it's like, oh, like I already know what this is going to be. Like, I'm just not interested. It's overplayed. It's overdone.
It is.
It's in every genre several times. And I just like, there's nothing new about it. You can't do it any differently. Somebody has to forget their whole life and fall in love with somebody. Great.
So going into Ruthless Vows, the main character gets amnesia.
Don't tell me.
But
fuck.
Sorry. Spoiler.
Rude.
And it's not a spoiler because at the end of Divine Rivals, you find out that he takes him.
Yeah, but you don't know that he has amnesia because he's been taken.
I mean, what were
her brother was also taken, and he doesn't have amnesia.
We'll get into that after. I'm looking at you like you're crazy. And I thought it was really well done. But I don't like. So I guess the difference between me, I like amnesia if it's done in fantasy a lot more than I like if it's romance. Just because amnesia can play with so many series, like with war or with magical powers and stuff like that. Yeah, that it can be done. It's not done well because it's done the same. Like everyone has to forget. And I agree with you. It is overdone, but it can be
I believe it can be impactful to a story if you already have a story.
Right.
Like when I pick up and they're like, this is the first book of a series.
Correct.
And here,
100%.
Lucy Liu forgets her whole life from the time she's 25 to now. She's missing 2 years.
It's different if it's happening halfway through.
Robert meets her and
but if it happens book 3 or 4, you're like, oh, okay, that makes a...
Yeah, because it can be impactful at that point because you already know the character.
Gotcha. Okay.
When they have amnesia, like... What if they're completely different? And they always are.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, then you don't really love one or the other of them. I'm just saying.
I agree with that. So my favorites goes along with Tarah. I am an enemies to lovers stan for fantasy, but I think that rivals to lovers is definitely romance. So I do love a good rivals to lovers. Or rivals to lovers. And I'm also with Cassie. I enjoy fake dating. Fake dating for me is one of those tropes that is very, very, very overdone. Yeah. But if you can do it right, it's very
100% worth it.
Because with fake dating, you get more attention than anything because they have to pretend to be lovey-dovey and touch on each other. And
but if
they have
it's
to,
not done correctly...
Oh, it can be cringy.
Yeah, because you get that, are you really this fucking stupid that you haven't figured it out by now? So it has to, you have to be really delicate with the fake dating.
Like in love, theoretically.
One of those.
The blue one.
The love hypothesis, I thought that was done. Yeah. It was done very well, I think. And that's where you get a lot of tension because in that book, since you brought it up, Adam and Olive have to she has to rub lotion on his back, and that causes and stuff like that. So I just feel like it gives you more tension, and I am a slow burn slut. I like when you get so much tension in it and so much slow burn, and it's just fireworks.
Yeah, for sure.
So I definitely like that.
The one we read recently was that way too. Practice makes perfect.
Oh, yes. Sarah. Yep, Sarah Adams. And it's a closed door, and it was really spicy.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think it was spicy because of the closed door. No. It was the banter and the freaking tension.
Exactly.
And everything else. That can be just as spicy as any sex scene you can write.
Yeah, 100%.
I almost like it more when they're hating each other than I do when they're liking each other. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, hate sex is probably the best sex. So, my least favorite trope is I have a mix of two. You guys are going to be like, really? I'm not a big second chance romance fan.
I can give or take.
I don't think if you guys I'm not saying second chance romance as in you guys drifted apart in high school and you guys got back to, that's not second chance. Second chance is something happened, you guys broke up, went several years, and then try to get back together. If you broke up the first time, stay broke up. And then I don't like insta love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm not an insta love person.
Second chance romance, and I'm not a big friends to lovers, but I rather do that than second chance. Second chance for me, I've just read too many second chance that they were bad for each other and then they divorced or broke up, and then 6 years later they're still the same people, just more attractive, and they want to give it another shot.
I hate when I read that characters, I was married to them 10 years ago and we divorced, and
I'm like, if you're divorced, stay divorced.
And I'm like,
yeah,
that's
if you
weird.
could grow enough as your own people to get back together, you could have done that in your relationship too.
But given that I say that, and then one of my favorite books from last year was a Taylor Jenkins Reid book that was it One True Love or something like that.
After I Do was After that way I Do,
too. Yes,
but that was 2 years ago. That was 2022 that we read it.
Okay. Yeah. We read it a couple years ago, and I loved it, and it was second chance.
Yeah.
And they weren't even divorced or anything. They were just dating other people and trying to figure out their way back to each other. But I loved it, but it was heartbreaking.
Yes,
it was. It was a heartbreaking read, and I loved it, but it's just not one of my favorite tropes. And it's done, if it's not done right, you feel like both those characters are just getting together, toxic, energy back.
It's not good.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's it for February. We're wrapping up the romance, and we hope to see you guys back in March when we hopefully get up to some trouble.
Yeah, definitely let us know also your favorite tropes with the romance genre. If you've read anything that's a really good romance book, we are always up for recommendations, and we really appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Till next time.